Hey everyone, it's Glenn Rawson. And by my reckoning, it is Tuesday, December 2nd, just about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I saw a notice this morning that Cyber Monday has been extended into Tuesday. And I know that it's one of those stressful times of the year when you're shopping for Christmas and there's ads blasting at you constantly. And I'm sorry to be a part of that. But let me tell you the honest truth. I make a living by the tours that I do and by the books that we sell. And so that's how I support myself. I spend all year, along with my partner, Dennis Lyman, writing books like this so that we can keep going in this work. And I want to tell you about this book today, The Great Rescue of 1856. This is a gorgeous book. But first of all, let me tell you why we wrote this book. Some of you will remember a generation back with President Hinckley when he started talking about the handcart people in general conference talks. And it awakened the memory of all of us. And out of that came probably more than a decade of emphasis on buying the property at Martin's Cove, on books being written about the Martin and Willie handcart companies and stories coming forth and movies and documentaries, everything. And we were part of that a generation back. But one of the stories that to me was never emphasized the way I thought it should be was, yes, the story of Martin and Willie, but the story of the rescue, the men and women who did so much to bring in their stranded brothers and sisters on the plains of Wyoming. We wanted to tell that story. The story that President Hinckley said was one of the greatest rescues in American history. And that's what this book is all about. It tells the story through story and pictures, artwork, of the story of the rescue. You have to understand that, at least in my humble opinion, the story of the rescue of Martin and Willie and the Hunt and Hodgett wagon companies is one of the most dramatic moments of faith, heroism, courage, sacrifice, obedience in the history of this church. I don't know of any moment in our history when we as a people shined more brightly than in the winter of 56 and 57, when we went out to help these people, strangers from a foreign land that we didn't even know. It's a remarkable story. And you know, winter's coming on. I'm looking out the window right here, and there is snow on the hills up here. And I'm anticipating that temperatures are going to drop. It was in the 20s yesterday, and it's going to get colder. And it was this kind of year, this time of the year, and it was this kind of weather. In fact, the winter of 56, 57 was one of the worst on record. So it was much colder and the snow was much deeper when those men and boys packed up and left the warmth and security of their homes, the work that they had to do there, and their wives and families, and they went east onto the high plains of Wyoming, where the weather was much worse. The storms and the blizzards were more severe. Every step they took east made it that much more difficult to survive and took them that much further from home. Now, I don't know that I recommend you stand and wade through an icy stream to get a feeling of what those boys went through in the rescue. But at least I should tell you. And it wasn't just that. The timing. They arrived at the at the Willie Company, the rescuers did, on the very day that they ran out of food. Had they been 3 days later, the fatalities would have been astronomically more. And the same thing with the Martin Company further to the east. They showed up, the rescuers, on the very day when Captain Martin said, "Are you sorry that you came? Are you willing to die for the faith?" And they said yes. The inspired prophetic timing. Brigham Young was a prophet, seer, and revelator, and they got there just in the nick of time. And there's one more element to this story, I suppose, and that is the women and the children back here at home. Not only did they give up their menfolk to go out and effect this wonderful rescue, but in some cases they took the food out of the mouths of their own family and sent it east to feed the starving immigrants. They took the clothes off their back. In one instance, even the shoes and stockings off her feet, and wrapped up her feet and walked home in rags. And stories of women taking off their petticoats and removing their shawls and bonnets and giving them to the wagons as they rolled out of the valley. This is one of the most brilliant moments in our history. And I'm afraid it's being forgotten by this modern generation. It's a rescue. It's the very thing, my dear friends, that you and I have been called on to do with the gathering of Israel. What's the gathering of Israel about? Why are we going to the temple to do work for the dead? It's a rescue. I recommend this book to you, my friends. A great and inspiring gift for Christmas. It's The Great Rescue of 1856, available now at History of the Saints.